Hello everyone, and welcome to another Genshin lore video. Today, I'll be going over the lore of Sumeru's city-states era and how the hero Xiphos led to its downfall. This lore is given to us through the Tulaytullah series of weapons, as well as other weapons, artifacts, and more. Also, this video does contain spoilers for the quests listed on screen now, so if you haven't done those, you have been warned. Anyways, let's move right on and get into the video. To start off, let me explain where the city-states era fits into Sumeru's timeline. These stories all take place after the Forbidden Knowledge incident, and therefore after the death of King Deshret. During this incident, 7 towers were built with the purpose to stop the flood of Forbidden Knowledge. As time passed, a man known as Shah Ramshar became credited with building the 7 towers, though this wasn't the best legacy to have. You see, the towers were only known to have been built at the time of King Deshret's death. As such, they have become known as the Towers of Betrayal. Despite this name, people began to congregate around these towers. Over time, 7 cities would be built around these 7 towers. These included Tulaytullah, Saleh, a rebuilt Ichanum, and a rebuilt Gurabad. As for the other 3 cities, we aren't sure what their names are. We do know the names of many other cities that existed during this time, but since there are almost 100 cities, it's hard to narrow down what the missing 3 are. Anyways, as the city-states era went on, each of these 7 cities would fall. In fact, most of the cities in the desert would fall. Some of course survived in one way or another to the present day, but the 7 cities themselves did not. The stories I'm going to talk about today also mentioned a rainforest city called Organa, which is now known as Port Ormos. Now then, it's time to dive into the lore of Tulaytullah and how the city-states era began and ended. In an age long gone, Tulaytullah was known as a city of wisdom that played host to the wise Tainarians. Other than their association with Tulaytullah, nothing is known about the Tainarians. It is possible that they are direct ancestors of Tainari, but again, we just aren't sure at the moment. Now, when Tulaytullah was first built, it was led by King Humayun. When Ramshar, the builder of the 7 towers, passed away, Humayun took his princess as his wife and became known as Humayun Gurkhan. However, his reign was relatively short-lived. A few years after he became king, he was decapitated at the city of Saleh during the Jin Uprising. Despite the death of their king, Tulaytullah managed to remain stable for quite some time. In fact, refugees from another city led by a man known as Garshasp would flock to Tulaytullah after his death. It isn't exactly clear which city these refugees came from, as Garshasp ruled over both Gurabad and Ichanum at different points. Also around this time, King Salabdale would make an alliance with the port city of Organa, now known as Port Ormos. However, this alliance didn't last long. One of the days of Organa, Muzaffar, would brutally betray King Salabdale by killing not only the king, but also his entire bloodline. After that, Muzaffar would remain in the desert, never returning to Organa. Many years later, his descendant Badana would eventually unite the 99 city-states of the desert. Unfortunately for him though, he would be assassinated by his son Faramarz and concubine Makira, who lured him into a structurally unstable tower. When he was inside, the tower collapsed and Badana was killed. After his father's death, Faramarz would take the throne of the desert. Due to his young age though, Makira became queen regent and ruled in his place. Eventually, Faramarz decided to abdicate the throne to his uncle and minister, Balash. He would then move to the Emerald Palace, but he would soon come back. You see, another one of Faramarz's uncles, Goraz, didn't like that Balash was in command. As such, he raised an army to restore Faramarz's reign and fought against Balash. In the ensuing battle, Balash would be killed and Faramarz would return to the throne, becoming king once again. During this reign, both Goraz and Makira would act as co-regents for the young king. However, Goraz eventually took the throne for himself before banishing Faramarz from the city. In the wake of Balash's death and Goraz's usurpation of the throne though, the people of Tulaytullah rebelled. Goraz would be killed, with Makera giving his head to the rebels in order to appease them. Faramarz would then return, taking the throne for the third time. Right after this though, the city of Soleil rebelled to gain independence from the other cities, but Makera was able to handle the situation. However, this rebellion led to many challenges for the throne, leading to a prolonged war. After many years, the war would end and Faramarz would reclaim the throne for the final time. Upon returning, he decided to assassinate Makera due to her shifting loyalties, thinking that her death would prevent any more chaos in the kingdom. However, Faramarz would be exiled one final time soon after he returned to the throne. He would eventually make his way to Dharma Forest, where he stayed for the rest of his life. Before he left though, it is suggested that he blinded one of his retainers, who would go on to be a common poet. Later on, the blind man would meet a wandering boy named Xiphos. At first, he seemed like an ordinary boy, but after telling his story, it was revealed that he was so much more. Xiphos was actually a prince of one of the kingdoms that had existed in the Great Red Sand. When this kingdom was being destroyed, his mother dressed him as a servant. She would burn his crown and royal clothes, then send him out into the desert to protect him from the destruction. The only item she had left with him was a sword known as the Key of Xiphos. This scepter proved that its owner had the right to rule the desert, and it was proof of his heritage. The old blind poet soon realized the sword Xiphos held was one of the keys that could open the Eternal Oasis. As such, he encouraged Xiphos to embark on a journey across the desert and reach his destiny of reuniting the desert peoples. Xiphos did go on this journey, wielding a blade dwelt by a bloodthirsty genie. With his blade, Xiphos would quickly earn a reputation as the hero of Tulaytullah. He saved many maidens from monsters, acquiring treasure from them in return. While prosperity and hope filled the city, the other city-states soon became resentful of these blessings held by Tulaytullah and its hero. As such, they decided to target Xiphos, sending a wandering foreign mercenary to kill him. According to some legends, this mercenary was actually Faramarz, who had previously been exiled from Tulaytullah. The two soon met in a duel, and Xiphos was unfortunately killed. His killer then left the desert forever and moved to the rainforest. After Xiphos' death, the city-state's era would end. The scepter he held, the Key of Xiphos, would be lost amidst the desert sands. A few years later, Tulaytullah would fall, with only the Garden of Endless Pillars remaining. Many other cities would fall soon after, bringing an end to this chaotic and troubled time. Anyways, that's pretty much it for the lore of Xiphos and Sumeru's city-states era. There were city-states that existed before this, and I have covered one of them in my recent video on the rise and fall of Gurabad. I also have other videos on Sumeru lore, including Flower of Paradise Lost, Borukash's Glow, King Deshret, and Nabu Malikata. With all of that said, I would love to hear what other bits of lore you'd like me to cover in the comments below as well. Anyways, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Sources and further readings are also in the description if you want to check them out. I hope you all have an amazing day, and I'll see you all in the next video.